Welcome to the West Wing Week, your guide to everything that's happening at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. This week, President Obama focused on education, visiting innovative classrooms in Miami and Boston, and dropping in on a U.S. history class in Arlington, Virginia, with Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard. That's March 4th to the 10th, or Law School in 15 Seconds. On Friday, March 4th, President Obama and Education Secretary ARNE Duncan boarded Air Force One from Miami, Florida.
So what's going on?
Well, education.
They visited Miami Central High School with former Florida Governor Jeb Bush to discuss how winning the future will require investments in important reforms in America's schools.
Mr. President, how are you, sir? How are you? Thanks. Doing well. Now it's an honor to be here. Hey, Arnie.
Central, chronically one of Miami's lowest achieving schools, has been engaged in rigorous turnaround work and has seen some early successes, especially incorporating cutting-edge technology into the classroom.
Good performance. That's outstanding.
Even as we find ways to cut spending, what we can't do is cut back on investments like education that will help us create jobs and grow our economy.
On Monday, March 7th, President Obama welcomed Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard to the White House. The President and Prime Minister Gillard discussed the strong ties between the United States and Australia, an alliance 60 years strong. They also spoke about several international security issues, including Afghanistan and the situation in Libya.
I want to send a very clear message to those who are around Colonel Gaddafi. It is their choice to make how they operate moving forward, and they will be held accountable for whatever violence continues to take place there.
President Obama and Prime Minister Gillard, who is Australia's former education minister, then loaded the motorcade to head to Wakefield High School in Arlington, Virginia, the site of President Obama's 2009 back-to-school speech, to check in on a classroom of juniors there.
One kid turned to another and said, "Is she speaking English?"
Prime Minister Gillard quizzed the kids on their knowledge of Australian geography, and the kids tested both leaders' knowledge of American history.
How many of these presidents can you name around
That's Lincoln. And that's Washington.
On Tuesday, March 8th, President Obama was joined by Melinda Gates, co-chair of the Gates Foundation, and Secretary of Education ARNE Duncan on a visit to Tech Boston Academy in Boston, Massachusetts.
It's a biotech class where they're learning about college biology.
The president visited some classrooms and spoke to students and faculty about the shared responsibility that government, businesses, philanthropists, and communities have to promote innovative education strategies that will prepare American students to compete in a 21st century economy. The president also fell back on his old role as a teacher of constitutional law.
Any particular case? I used to teach constitutional law, so I know a little something about this. Yes, sir. Okay, and why don't you state the case? What's the court's conclusion? What was the rationale? What did they say? What was the reason? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do.
See?
Wow.
That's law school class right there.
There's no better economic policy than one that produces more graduates with the skills they need to succeed, to start their own businesses, to create their own Microsoft, to create new industries. And that's why reforming education is the responsibility of every single American, every parent, every teacher, every business leader, every public official, and yes, every student.
On Wednesday, March 9th, President Obama nominated his Commerce Secretary Gary Locke to replace John Huntsman as the U.S. ambassador to China.
In replacing Ambassador Huntsman, I can think of nobody who is more qualified than Gary Locke. More than 100 years ago, Gary's grandfather left China on a steamboat bound for America, where he worked as a domestic servant in Washington State. A century later, his grandson will return to China as America's top diplomat.
On Thursday, March 10th, the President and First Lady convened the White House Conference on Bullying Prevention. The conference brought together parents, students, and teachers from across the nation who have been affected by bullying, as well as those who are taking action to address it.
Today, bullying doesn't even end at the school bell. They can follow our children from the hallways to their cell phones to their computer screens. And in recent months, a series of tragedies has drawn attention to just how devastating bullying can be.
Later that afternoon, the President met with a bipartisan group of House members and senators in the Roosevelt Room to discuss important school reform legislation. To find out more information on any of these topics or to see complete videos of these events, go to whitehouse.gov. And thanks again for checking out your West Wing Week.
First grade? What happened to all your teeth? You got no teeth?